There is something very special about people between the ages of 75 and 85 who still carry kindness in their hearts, even after life has tested them again and again. Many people think getting older only means becoming weaker, slower, or forgotten. But that is not true for everyone. Some older people become even more beautiful inside because of everything they have survived. They become softer, wiser, calmer, and stronger in ways the world no longer understands. Maybe you are one of those people. Maybe your hands shake a little now when you hold your morning coffee. Maybe your knees hurt when you stand up too fast. Maybe your house feels quieter than it used to. The children grew up. Friends moved away. Some loved ones left this world forever. And yet, every morning, you still get up. You still make your bed. You still pray. You still smile at strangers. You still care about others even when your own heart carries pain nobody sees. That kind of strength is rare. The world today moves fast. People rush through conversations. Families eat dinner while staring at phones. Many people do not even know their neighbors anymore. But your generation came from a different world. You remember when promises mattered. You remember when people stayed married through hard times instead of walking away at the first problem. You remember writing letters by hand. You remember saving money carefully because every dollar mattered. You remember respecting your parents and helping others without expecting applause. And if you still do these things today, then you truly are one of a kind. The first thing that makes you rare is this: you still treat people with respect. That may sound simple, but it is becoming uncommon. You still say, "Thank you." You still look people in the eye. You still listen when someone speaks. Even after all these years, you understand that every human being deserves dignity. Many younger people never learned this deeply. Life became rushed and distracted, but you grew up in a time when character mattered more than attention. And because of that, you carry something powerful inside you. Think about all the people whose lives you quietly touched over the years. The cashier who was having a terrible day, but smiled because you spoke kindly to them. The grandchild who still remembers the way you encouraged them when nobody else believed in them. The neighbor who felt less lonely because you waved every morning. You may not realize it, but small acts of kindness become lifelong memories for other people. There was an old man once named Walter. He was 81 years old and lived alone after his wife passed away. Every morning he walked slowly to the same little diner in town. He ordered the same breakfast every single day: eggs, toast, and black coffee. The young waitress there once asked him, "Why do you always come here instead of staying home?" Walter smiled softly and said, "Because people need people, even quiet people." The waitress never forgot those words. Years later, after Walter passed away, she told someone that he taught her something important. He taught her that loneliness does not always mean being alone. Sometimes loneliness means feeling invisible, and Walter made sure nobody around him felt invisible. That is the kind of person the world desperately needs more of. If you still check on people, if you still remember birthdays, if you still ask others how they are doing and truly mean it, then you carry a rare light inside you. The second thing that makes you one of a kind is this: you still keep going even after heartbreak. People who are younger often think strength means muscles or money or success. But real strength looks very different. Real strength is surviving loss without letting bitterness destroy your heart. By the age of 75 or 85, most people have experienced pain deeper than words can explain. You may have buried parents. Some buried brothers or sisters. Some buried lifelong friends. Some even buried children, which is a pain nobody should ever know. And still you kept going. That alone is extraordinary. You learned how to sit quietly with grief and continue living anyway. You learned how to carry memories without collapsing under their weight. You learned how to smile through tears because life does not stop for sorrow. Many people never understand how brave older adults truly are. Every photograph in your home tells a story. Every wrinkle carries history. Every gray hair represents years of sacrifice, worry, love, and survival. And despite all that, you still wake up hoping tomorrow will bring something good. That hope is beautiful. There is a woman named Eleanor who turned 84 last spring. Her husband died 12 years ago. For a long time, she thought her life was over. The silence in the house felt unbearable. Some mornings she cried while folding laundry because she missed hearing his voice. But little by little, she started doing small things again. She planted flowers. She baked pies for neighbors. She joined a church group. She started writing letters to her grandchildren. One day her granddaughter asked her, "Grandma, how did you stay so strong after Grandpa died?" Eleanor looked out the window for a moment before answering. "You do not stay strong all at once," she said. "You survive one day at a time. Then one morning you realize your heart still knows how to love life again." That sentence holds so much wisdom. If you are still finding reasons to smile after everything life has taken from you, then you are carrying a kind of courage most people will never fully understand. And maybe nobody says this enough, but you deserve respect for that. Not pity. Not being ignored. Respect. Because surviving decades of life without losing your humanity is one of the hardest things a person can do. And here is the truth many people forget. Older people are not less than. They are living libraries filled with lessons the younger world desperately needs. You know things that cannot be learned from social media or quick videos online. You know the importance of patience. You know the value of hard work. You know that healing takes time. You know that family matters more than pride. You know that love is shown through actions, not only words. And if you still live by those values today, then you are truly one of a kind. As the years pass, many people become cynical. They stop trusting. They stop caring. They stop trying. But some people refuse to let the world harden them. Maybe that is you. Maybe you still believe in goodness. Maybe you still help people even when nobody notices. Maybe you still pray for others quietly at night. Maybe you still believe that being a good person matters. If so, then please understand something important tonight. The world may move fast now. People may overlook older generations. Society may celebrate youth while forgetting wisdom. But people like you are precious beyond measure, because kindness without expectation is rare. Faithfulness is rare. Gentleness is rare. Loyalty is rare. And the people who still carry these qualities after 80 years of life are even rarer. So if you still do these things, if you still live with dignity, compassion, and quiet strength, then you truly are one of a kind. One of the rarest things in this world today is not intelligence, beauty, money, or success. It is a gentle heart. And if you are between the ages of 75 and 85, and you still protect other people's feelings, even after everything life has put you through, then your heart is truly extraordinary. Because life can make people hard. Pain can change people. Disappointment can make people cold. Years of betrayal, loss, rejection, and loneliness can slowly turn kindness into bitterness. Many people begin life soft and loving, but somewhere along the way, they stop caring. They stop listening. They stop noticing when others are hurting. But some people never lose that softness inside. Maybe you are one of them. Maybe even now, after all these years, you still worry about being a burden to others. You still apologize when someone helps you. You still try not to trouble anyone, even when you are the one struggling. That says something very deep about your character. Older generations often carry a quiet kind of love that younger people sometimes fail to recognize. You were raised in a time when people thought about others before themselves. You learned to share even when there was little. You learned to keep going without complaining. You learned that kindness was not weakness. And because of that, you developed something beautiful, consideration for others. There are elderly people who live with pain every single day and still ask other people, "How are you doing?" before speaking about themselves. Think about that for a moment. That is not weakness. That is emotional strength. There was a woman named Margaret who lived in a small town in Ohio. She was 82 years old and had severe arthritis in both hands. Simple tasks were painful for her. Some mornings, buttoning her sweater took several minutes because her fingers hurt so much. But every Sunday morning, she still baked cookies for her church group. One winter day, a younger woman asked her gently, "Margaret, why do you still do all this when it is so hard for you?" Margaret smiled and said something unforgettable. "Because someone might need to feel remembered today." That was her answer. Not for praise, not for attention, simply because she understood something many people forget: small acts of love can save lonely hearts. That generation understood emotional responsibility in a way that feels rare today. You knew words could wound people. You knew silence could hurt someone. You knew kindness could heal pain nobody talked about openly. And maybe because you lived through harder times, you learned to notice suffering more carefully. You notice when someone sounds tired. You notice when a person forces a smile. You notice when someone says, "I'm fine," but clearly is not. That emotional awareness is a gift. Many older people carry invisible wisdom because they spent decades watching human hearts closely. They learned that everybody is fighting battles nobody else can fully see. The young cashier trying not to cry at work. The divorced father sitting alone at a restaurant. The widow pretending she is okay after losing her husband. The teenager acting angry because they feel lost inside. You understand pain differently because you have lived long enough to recognize it hiding behind people's faces. And if you still respond to that pain with kindness instead of judgment, then your soul has remained beautiful through the years. That is incredibly rare. There is another thing many older people do that deserves more appreciation. You still try to keep peace in the family, even when families become complicated. Even when children drift apart, even when misunderstandings happen, you still hope people can forgive each other. You still believe families should stay connected. And sometimes you carry the emotional weight of holding everyone together. Many grandparents quietly become the emotional glue of entire families. You are the one remembering birthdays. You are the one making phone calls. You are the one trying to keep traditions alive. You are the one inviting everyone to dinner even when people are busy. You are the one praying for your children and grandchildren late at night when nobody knows. That emotional labor is exhausting sometimes, but you keep doing it because your heart understands something deeply important: life is shorter than people realize. At 75, 80, or 85 years old, you begin seeing time differently. You no longer waste energy on meaningless things. You know how quickly years disappear. You know one phone call can become the last conversation. One holiday can become the final memory together. That awareness changes people. You start valuing moments more carefully. You begin understanding that relationships matter more than pride. And if you still choose love over bitterness after all these years, then you truly are one of a kind. There was a grandfather named Joseph who had 3 sons who stopped speaking to each other after a business disagreement. Years passed without family gatherings. Holidays became quiet. The family slowly broke apart. Joseph watched all of this silently for a long time. Then one Thanksgiving, at age 83, he invited all 3 sons to his small home. They almost refused to come. The tension between them was still heavy. But they came because it was their father asking. When dinner ended, Joseph stood slowly from his chair and looked at his sons with tears in his eyes. "I don't know how much time I have left," he said softly, "but I do know this. When I leave this world, I do not want my family standing apart from each other." Nobody spoke for several seconds. Then one son started crying. Soon all 3 were hugging each other like children again. Sometimes older hearts carry wisdom younger hearts are too distracted to understand. You understand that love matters more than winning arguments. You understand that forgiveness heals families. You understand that loneliness can destroy people quietly. And maybe that is why your generation still tries so hard to protect relationships. You know how painful regret can become later in life. There is another beautiful thing about many people between 75 and 85. You still feel grateful for simple things. That is incredibly special. You grew up in times when people appreciated what they had because life was not always easy. Some of you grew up during difficult economic years. Some grew up without luxuries. Some lived through war, hardship, sacrifice, and uncertainty. So now, even small blessings still mean something to you. A warm meal, a phone call from family, a sunny morning, a peaceful evening, a visit from grandchildren, a quiet cup of coffee. You still know how to enjoy simple moments. That ability is disappearing in today's world. Many people constantly chase bigger houses, more money, more attention, more success. But no matter how much they gain, they remain restless inside. Meanwhile, some older people sit peacefully on a porch watching birds and feel completely thankful for life. That kind of peace cannot be bought. It comes from wisdom. It comes from surviving enough storms to finally understand what truly matters. And perhaps one of the most touching things about your generation is this: even after being hurt many times, you still care about people. You still answer the phone when someone needs to talk. You still give advice when asked. You still help family members financially, sometimes even when your own budget is tight. You still worry about your children, no matter how old they become. A mother can be 80 years old and still pray for her 60-year-old son like he is a little boy. That is love in its purest form. The world today often celebrates loud people, rich people, famous people, and powerful people. But quiet hearts like yours deserve recognition too, because the people who continue choosing kindness after decades of life experience are some of the strongest human beings alive. Not everybody can do that. Some people grow older and become angry at the world. Others grow older and become softer. If you still speak gently, if you still try not to hurt others, if you still believe compassion matters, if you still protect people's feelings even when nobody notices, then your heart is extraordinary. And in a world becoming colder and more disconnected every year, people like you are becoming incredibly rare. There comes a certain age when people begin realizing that happiness was never hiding in expensive things. It was always hiding in ordinary moments. And if you are between 75 and 85 years old, and you still find joy in simple things, then you have held onto one of the greatest treasures a human being can possess. Because many people lose this ability long before they grow old. Some people become so busy chasing success, attention, money, or status that they stop noticing life itself. They rush through mornings. They ignore sunsets. They forget how beautiful quiet moments can be. Their hearts become restless, always searching for more, but never feeling satisfied. But many older people understand something deeper. You understand that life is not made precious by how much you own. Life becomes precious because of how deeply you feel it. Maybe you still enjoy sitting quietly near a window when rain falls outside. Maybe you still smile when birds gather in the yard early in the morning. Maybe you still enjoy hearing children laugh. Maybe a warm blanket, a peaceful evening, or a simple conversation means more to you now than anything money could buy. If so, then you have not lost the best part of life. You have protected it. There was an 80-year-old woman named Helen who lived in a small white house at the edge of town. Her furniture was old. Her television was small. Her life looked simple from the outside. But every evening, she sat on her porch with a cup of tea and watched the sunset like it was the most important event in the world. One day, her grandson asked her, "Grandma, don't you ever get bored doing the same thing every day?" Helen smiled softly. "No," she said. Because I learned something people forget when they are young. What's that? He asked. She looked at the orange sky for a long moment before answering. The ordinary parts of life are actually the most beautiful. That sentence stayed with him forever. And maybe it is true. Maybe the reason older people sometimes seem calmer is because you finally learned what truly matters. You learned that peace is worth more than drama. You learned that real happiness often arrives quietly, not loudly. At 75 or 85, many people stop pretending life is perfect. You know, every family has struggles. Every person has heartbreak. Every life includes pain. But instead of becoming hopeless, many older souls become more appreciative. Because you know how quickly everything can change. You know a healthy body is a blessing. You know another birthday is not guaranteed. You know one conversation can become the last conversation. You know one ordinary afternoon can later become a memory someone treasures forever. That awareness changes the way you experience life. You begin slowing down enough to notice things younger people miss. The smell of coffee in the morning. The comfort of hearing familiar voices. The sound of wind moving through trees. The warmth of sunlight through a kitchen window. A grandchild reaching for your hand. Those moments may look small to the world, but they are not small. They are life itself. There was a man named Robert who turned 83 after surviving heart surgery. Before the surgery, he spent most of his life working nonstop. He rarely rested, rarely slowed down, rarely paid attention to simple joys. But after almost losing his life, something changed inside him. One morning, several months later, he sat outside watching squirrels run across his backyard. His daughter noticed tears in his eyes and became worried. "Dad, are you okay?" she asked. Robert nodded slowly. "I just never realized how beautiful ordinary mornings are," he whispered. That moment says something powerful about aging. Sometimes growing older is not about losing life. Sometimes it is about finally seeing life clearly. Many people between 75 and 85 carry a kind of wisdom younger generations have not discovered yet. You know happiness cannot be postponed forever. You know life is happening now. Not someday. Not after more money. Not after perfect circumstances. Now. And if you still wake up grateful for simple moments, then your spirit remains alive in a very special way. There is another thing that makes your generation rare. You still know how to be present. Today, many people are physically together but emotionally far away. Families sit at dinner staring at phones. Friends meet but barely listen to each other. Everyone is distracted. Everyone is rushing. But your generation remembers something different. You remember conversations without screens. You remember evenings spent talking on front porches. You remember card games, storytelling, family dinners, handwritten letters, neighborhood friendships, and laughter that lasted for hours. You remember what human connection felt like before the world became constantly distracted. And because of that, many older people still know how to truly sit with another person. You listen fully. You notice emotions. You make people feel seen. That gift matters more than you realize. There are lonely people everywhere today. People starving for real connection. People silently carrying anxiety, depression, fear, and heartbreak while pretending everything is fine. And sometimes one genuine conversation with someone older can heal more than advice ever could. Because wisdom has a calming effect. There is comfort in speaking with someone who has already survived difficult seasons of life. Someone who understands grief. Someone who understands patience. Someone who understands that pain eventually softens with time. That is why grandparents often become emotional safe places for younger generations. Your presence itself feels comforting, not because you have perfect answers, but because your calmness reminds others that storms do not last forever. There was a teenage girl named Sophie who struggled deeply with anxiety. Her parents were busy working long hours, and she often felt alone inside her thoughts. But every Saturday, she visited her 81-year-old grandfather. They did not do anything extraordinary together. Sometimes they simply sat outside drinking lemonade. Sometimes they watched old movies. Sometimes they barely spoke at all. But years later, Sophie admitted something important. "Grandpa made me feel safe," she said. "When I was with him, the world felt slower and less frightening." That is the quiet power older people often carry without realizing it. You have survived enough life to understand that not every problem needs panic. Not every season lasts forever. Not every wound stays open forever. And if you still share that calmness with others, then you are giving people something deeply valuable. The world desperately needs more peaceful hearts right now. There is also something deeply beautiful about older people who still laugh easily. That kind of laughter becomes precious with age. Because by 75 or 85, life has given you plenty of reasons to become serious all the time. You have experienced funerals, disappointments, financial struggles, health problems, and emotional pain. And yet, some people still laugh warmly. They still tease family members playfully. They still smile at silly jokes. They still enjoy little moments of humor. That is not childish. That is resilience. It takes strength to keep joy alive after difficult years. Some people lose their ability to laugh because life hardens them too much, but others protect that light inside themselves no matter what happens. Maybe you know someone like that. Or maybe you are that person. Maybe your family still loves hearing your stories because you bring warmth into the room. Maybe grandchildren gather around you because your presence feels comforting. Maybe people leave conversations with you feeling lighter than before. If so, then never underestimate your value. Older people who still carry joy become emotional anchors for entire families. You remind younger generations that happiness does not disappear with age. You remind people that life can still hold beauty after loss. You remind others that aging is not the end of meaning. In many ways, it is the beginning of deeper meaning. And perhaps that is the real secret many older souls discover: life becomes more precious when you stop rushing through it. So if you still enjoy simple pleasures, if you still pause to appreciate quiet moments, if you still laugh from the heart, if you still find beauty in ordinary days, then you have held on to something the modern world is slowly forgetting. And that makes you truly one of a kind. One of the saddest things happening in the world today is how easily people walk away from each other. Friendships disappear over small disagreements. Families stop speaking over pride. Marriages break apart when life becomes difficult. Promises are treated like temporary emotions instead of lifelong commitments. But many people between the ages of 75 and 85 come from a generation that understood something deeper about love. You understood that real love was never supposed to be easy all the time. Real love required patience, sacrifice, forgiveness, commitment. And if you still stay loyal to the people you love, even during difficult seasons, then your heart carries something truly rare. Because loyalty has become uncommon. Many younger people today grew up in a world where everything moves quickly. Fast conversations, fast relationships, fast endings. People are taught to replace things easily. Even relationships sometimes feel temporary, but your generation often believed in staying. Staying when things became hard. Staying when someone got sick. Staying when money became tight. Staying when misunderstandings happened. You knew love was not only about feelings. It was also about responsibility, devotion, and choosing each other again and again over many years. That kind of love deserves respect. There was an elderly man named Frank who visited his wife in a nursing home every single day. He was 84 years old, and his wife, Rose, no longer recognized him because of Alzheimer's disease. Every morning he arrived carrying flowers or small chocolates she used to enjoy years ago. Sometimes she smiled at him politely like he was a stranger. Sometimes she looked confused. Sometimes she forgot his name completely. One nurse finally asked him gently, Why do you keep coming every day when she does not even know who you are anymore?" Frank looked down quietly for a moment. Then he smiled. "She may not know who I am," he said softly, "but I still know who she is." Those words touched everyone in the room, because that is loyalty, not staying only when life feels easy, not loving only when you receive something back, but remaining faithful even when circumstances become painful. That kind of love is becoming rare in this world, and many older people carry that rare kind of love inside them. Maybe you spent decades caring for your spouse. Maybe you worked long hours to support your family. Maybe you sacrificed your own dreams so your children could have better opportunities. Maybe nobody fully understands how much you gave quietly over the years. But those sacrifices mattered, even when they went unnoticed. Especially then. One thing many people between 75 and 85 understand deeply is this love is built through ordinary days. Not grand speeches, not expensive gifts, but small daily acts repeated over time. Making coffee for someone every morning, checking if they arrived home safely, holding hands during difficult seasons, sitting beside them in silence when words are not enough. Your generation often expressed love through actions more than words. And honestly, there is something beautiful about that. Today, people often post love publicly online, but struggle to show patience privately at home. But many older couples built entire lives together quietly, without needing the world's attention. You learned that true love often looks ordinary from the outside, but inside those ordinary moments lived extraordinary devotion. There was a woman named Patricia who had been married for 61 years before her husband passed away. After the funeral, her granddaughter asked her something many people wonder. "Grandma," she said softly, "how did you stay married for so long?" Patricia smiled through tears. "We did not stay because life was perfect," she answered. "We stayed because we believed people are worth fighting for." That sentence carries wisdom younger generations desperately need, because long-term love is not built by avoiding hardship. It is built by surviving hardship together. And if you are someone who still values commitment, faithfulness, and loyalty after all these years, then you truly are one of a kind. There is another rare quality many older people still carry. You keep showing up for people. Even when you are tired, even when your body hurts, even when nobody thanks you enough. You still attend family gatherings. You still answer phone calls late at night. You still offer advice. You still help others however you can. Many grandparents continue giving emotionally, financially, and spiritually long after they should have been allowed to simply rest. Because your generation often believed helping family was simply what love looked like. You did not always say, "I love you," constantly. Sometimes you showed it through hard work, through sacrifice, through consistency, through being dependable year after year. And while the world changes, those values remain deeply meaningful. There are adults today who still remember the quiet sacrifices their parents or grandparents made decades ago. The father who worked double shifts without complaining. The mother who skipped buying things for herself so the children could have school clothes. The grandmother who cooked meals for everyone, even while dealing with her own pain. The grandfather who fixed things around the house, no matter how exhausted he felt. Those acts may have seemed small at the time, but children remember. Love leaves fingerprints on people's hearts. Sometimes people do not fully appreciate older generations until much later in life. As children, they may not understand the sacrifices being made. But as adults, reality becomes clearer. They finally realize how much strength it took to keep a family together. How much courage it took to survive difficult years. How much patience it took not to give up. And maybe you never received enough recognition for that. Maybe people assumed you were simply doing your job. But deep down, your sacrifices shaped lives. You created stability when times were uncertain. You created warmth when life felt cold. You created safety for people who depended on you. That matters more than words can express. There is also something deeply touching about older people who remain emotionally loyal. Not just loyal physically, but loyal in heart. You still remember old friends. You still honor memories. You still carry love for people who are no longer here. Many people between 75 and 85 continue speaking lovingly about spouses who passed away years ago. Not because they are trapped in sadness, but because real love leaves permanent marks on the soul. A widow may still smile hearing her husband's favorite song 20 years later. A grandfather may still carry old photographs carefully in his wallet. A mother may still think about her child every single day, no matter how old that child becomes. That kind of emotional loyalty is beautiful. It reminds us that genuine love does not disappear simply because time passes. And perhaps that is why older people often understand grief differently. You know, love and loss are connected. To love deeply means risking heartbreak someday. But many of you chose love anyway. That takes courage. The modern world often celebrates independence so much that people sometimes forget humans were created for connection. But your generation remembered the importance of standing beside each other through hard times. You understood that people need support, need family, need companionship, need loyalty. And if you still live with those values today, then your spirit carries something the world desperately needs more of. Because loyalty creates trust, loyalty creates emotional safety, loyalty creates families that survive storms together. Without loyalty, relationships become fragile. But people like you remind the world that commitment still matters, that promises still matter, that showing up still matters. There is something else many older adults quietly carry. You know, relationships are more important than ego. By 75 or 85, many people finally understand how meaningless certain arguments were. Pride loses importance. Winning arguments matters less. Connection matters more. That wisdom only comes through living. You begin realizing that time is limited. And suddenly, forgiveness becomes easier than regret. Phone calls become more important than silence. Love becomes more urgent than pride. That emotional maturity is powerful. And if you are someone who still chooses reconciliation over division, if you still try to keep people connected instead of tearing them apart, then your heart carries wisdom that only life experience can teach. So tonight, remember this. If you still stay loyal to the people you love, if you still believe commitment matters, if you still show up during difficult seasons, if you still protect relationships instead of abandoning them, then you carry one of the rarest qualities left in this world, a faithful heart, and that truly makes you one of a kind. By the time a person reaches the age of 75, 80, or 85, they have seen things most younger people cannot even imagine. You have watched entire decades disappear. You have watched the world change again and again. You have seen technology transform life completely. You have seen old neighborhoods vanish, old traditions fade away, and old friends slowly leave this world one by one. And through all of that, if you still wake up with faith in life, then you are truly remarkable. Because life gives people many reasons to stop believing, many reasons to become bitter, many reasons to give up emotionally. Some people lose faith after their first heartbreak. Some lose hope after financial struggles. Some stop trusting after betrayal. But older people who still carry hope after decades of pain and disappointment possess something very rare. A resilient spirit. Maybe your body is not as strong as it once was. Maybe you walk slower now. Maybe your hearing is weaker. Maybe your hands tremble slightly when holding old photographs. But your soul still carries light. And that matters more than you know. There was an 85-year-old man named Samuel who lost almost everything during his lifetime. He lost his younger brother in war. He lost his business during difficult financial years. Later, he lost his wife after 58 years of marriage. People around him expected him to become angry at life. But somehow he remained gentle. One afternoon, a young man asked him, "After everything you've been through, how do you still stay positive?" Samuel sat quietly for a moment before answering. "Because life also gave me beautiful things," he said softly. "And I decided not to forget them." That answer contains extraordinary wisdom. Many people remember only their pain, but older hearts often remember both the pain and the beauty. You remember holding your child for the first time. You remember laughing so hard with friends that your stomach hurt. You remember dancing in kitchens, family holidays, road trips, birthday cakes, wedding days, and quiet nights sitting beside someone you loved. Even after loss, those memories remain treasures inside you. And if you still choose gratitude, despite life's hardships, then your heart is incredibly strong. One thing people between 75 and 85 understand deeply is this: life was never meant to be perfect. You learn that every human being struggles somehow. No family escapes difficulty completely. No marriage avoids challenges entirely. No person lives without grief. But instead of expecting perfection, many older people learned how to appreciate imperfect beauty. You learned that life can still be meaningful even after heartbreak. That joy can still exist beside sadness. That healing does not always mean forgetting. That love continues even after death. Those lessons are powerful. And honestly, younger generations need this wisdom more than ever. Today, many people panic the moment life becomes uncomfortable. They expect happiness to be constant. They expect relationships to feel easy all the time. They expect quick solutions for emotional pain. But your generation often understood endurance differently. You knew difficult seasons were part of life. You knew storms eventually pass. You knew healing takes time. And because of that, many older people developed emotional resilience that younger people deeply admire. There is something calming about being around someone who has survived 80 years of life and still speaks gently, still smiles warmly, still believes tomorrow can hold goodness. That kind of hope becomes sacred. There was a grandmother named Ruth who sat beside her hospital window every evening during cancer treatment. One nurse noticed she always smiled at people walking past her room. Finally, the nurse asked, "How do you still stay cheerful through all this?" Ruth looked outside at the evening sky. "Because I woke up today," she answered softly. That is enough reason to be thankful. Simple words, but profound wisdom. Older people who still appreciate life after facing mortality often understand gratitude more deeply than anyone else. You know, every sunrise is a gift. Every conversation matters. Every peaceful day matters. Every hug matters. You stop taking ordinary moments for granted because you understand how fragile life truly is. And maybe that awareness is what makes many older souls feel precious. You carry perspective. You know what truly matters in the end. Not expensive possessions, not popularity, not status, but love, connection, peace, faith, family, memories, kindness. These are the things that remain valuable when everything else fades away. There is another reason people like you are truly remarkable. You still try. Even now, you still try to stay connected to family. You still try to remain independent. You still try to learn new things even when technology feels confusing sometimes. You still try to keep moving forward despite physical limitations. That effort deserves enormous respect. Growing older is not easy. Many people secretly fear aging because they do not understand the emotional courage it requires. Younger people often see only gray hair or wrinkles, but they do not see the strength behind them. They do not see the nights you stayed awake worrying about family, the years you worked hard while exhausted, the heartbreaks you survived silently, the sacrifices nobody noticed, the dreams you gave up for others. Every wrinkle tells a story. Every scar carries history. Every older person walking through a grocery store carries decades of memories, struggles, victories, and heartbreaks invisible to strangers around them. And still, many of you continue treating others kindly. That is extraordinary. because some people allow suffering to destroy their compassion. But others become even more compassionate because of suffering. Maybe you became softer after hardship instead of harder. Maybe pain taught you empathy. Maybe loss taught you tenderness. Maybe aging taught you patience. If so, then you are carrying one of the greatest forms of wisdom a human being can develop. There is something else many people between 75 and 85 still do beautifully. You continue loving people even when life changes. You still care deeply about family members who are busy and distracted. You still pray for people who forget to call sometimes. You still celebrate your grandchildren's accomplishments with genuine excitement. You still believe people can become better, that ongoing love matters more than you realize. One day, many younger people will look back and finally understand how valuable your presence was. They will miss your advice, your stories, your laughter, your traditions, your calming voice, your steady love, and perhaps they will realize too late that older people are not leftover parts of society. They are the roots holding families together. Strong roots are usually hidden underground. People do not always notice them. But without roots, nothing survives. That is what many older generations became for their families. Roots, stability, wisdom, protection, love. And if you are still carrying those qualities today, then you are truly one of a kind. So tonight, before you fall asleep, remember something important. Your life mattered. Your kindness mattered. Your sacrifices mattered. The love you gave mattered. Even the small things mattered more than you know. The meals you cooked, the advice you shared, the tears you hid, the encouragement you gave, the quiet prayers whispered late at night. None of it was wasted. You helped shape lives. And in a fast, moving world that often forgets the value of wisdom, people like you remain deeply precious. Because anyone can stay hopeful when life feels easy. But people who still carry faith, gratitude, compassion, and love after 80 years of life, those people are truly remarkable. And that is exactly why you are one of a kind. If you have listened this far, then maybe something inside these words felt familiar to your heart. Maybe you saw pieces of your own life in these stories. The sacrifices, the quiet loneliness, the strength nobody talks about, the love you continued giving even when life became difficult. And maybe, for the first time in a long time, someone finally reminded you of something important. Your generation still matters. Deeply. Because the truth is, people between the ages of 75 and 85 carry something this modern world is slowly losing. Wisdom, patience, loyalty, faith, compassion, emotional strength. And if you still carry these qualities after everything life has put you through, then you are truly one of a kind. The world today often celebrates youth, speed, beauty, and attention. People are praised for becoming famous quickly. Technology moves faster every year. Everything feels rushed, disposable, temporary. But your generation came from a different time. A time when people repaired things instead of replacing them. A time when families sat together at dinner. A time when neighbors knew each other's names. A time when promises meant something. A time when hard work was respected. A time when love was shown through actions, not only words. And even though the world has changed, many of you still carry those values quietly inside your heart. That is something beautiful. Because values like kindness, honesty, faithfulness, and respect never become old-fashioned. They become rare. And rare things become precious. Maybe there are days when you feel forgotten. Maybe the house feels too quiet sometimes. Maybe the phone does not ring as often as it used to. Maybe you wonder if people truly understand everything you survived to become the person you are today. But please hear this clearly tonight. Your life has value far beyond what you can see. The younger world may not always say it out loud, but your presence matters more than you realize. Your stories matter. Your advice matters. Your prayers matter. Your calmness matters. Your love matters. Even your survival matters. Because every older person still standing after decades of life becomes living proof that human beings can endure hardship without losing their humanity. That is powerful. You have survived grief that could have destroyed you. You have survived disappointments that younger people cannot imagine yet. You have survived financial struggles, family problems, heartbreak, sickness, and seasons where life felt unbearably heavy. And still, you continued loving people. You continued helping others. You continued hoping. You continued getting up every morning. That is not weakness. That is extraordinary strength. There are younger people today secretly searching for exactly the kind of wisdom you carry. Many are overwhelmed, anxious, lonely, and emotionally exhausted. They are surrounded by noise but starving for peace, connected online but disconnected emotionally. And sometimes, one conversation with someone older changes everything. Because older hearts often carry a calmness younger hearts desperately need. You remind people that pain does not last forever. You remind people that families can heal. You remind people that life continues after loss. You remind people that joy still exists in ordinary moments. You remind people that kindness still matters. And maybe you do not even realize how many lives you touched over the years. A child who felt safe because of your encouragement. A friend who survived a dark season because you listened. A grandchild who still remembers your gentle voice. A neighbor who felt less alone because you smiled at them every morning. Small acts of love create invisible ripples that continue for years, sometimes forever. There are people walking around today carrying strength you helped build without even knowing it. That is the hidden beauty of a meaningful life. Not everybody leaves behind fame or wealth, but some people leave behind warmth, safety, wisdom, love, and honestly, those things matter far more in the end. As people grow older, many begin fearing wrinkles, gray hair, or slower steps. Society teaches people to fear aging. But perhaps society misunderstands aging completely. Because aging is not only about losing youth, it is also about gaining depth, gaining perspective, gaining wisdom, gaining compassion. The most beautiful souls are often the ones life has tested deeply. And maybe that is why some older people shine with such quiet dignity. You can feel the life experience in them, the heartbreak they survived, the love they carried, the patience they learned, the grace they developed slowly through years of struggle. That kind of beauty cannot be bought. It is earned. And if you are someone who still treats people kindly, if you still value family, if you still believe in loyalty, if you still appreciate simple moments, if you still protect other people's feelings, if you still choose love over bitterness, then you are carrying treasures the modern world desperately needs more of. Please never believe your best years only existed in the past. Your presence still brings comfort. Your wisdom still teaches people. Your heart still matters. Sometimes older people think their purpose disappears once children grow up or careers end. But purpose does not disappear with age. Sometimes purpose becomes even deeper. Sometimes your purpose now is simply being the steady, loving presence this chaotic world needs. A warm voice, a patient listener, a source of wisdom, a reminder that goodness still exists. And if you are still here today, still loving, still caring, still hoping after everything life has brought your way, then there is something incredibly important you must understand. You are not ordinary. You are part of a generation that carried families through difficult decades. You are part of a generation that understood sacrifice. You are part of a generation that knew how to endure. And the truth is, people like you are becoming increasingly rare. So tonight, before this video ends, take one quiet moment for yourself. Think about everything you survived, everything you gave, everything you carried silently for others. Then remind yourself of this. You did better than you think you did. You loved more people than you realize. And your life became meaningful in ways you may never fully see. The world may change. Technology may change. Generations may change. But hearts like yours will always matter. Because in a world growing louder, colder, and more distracted every year, Gentle souls like yours are still a light, and they always will be.